Ta-da! Unbelievable.
I tell you, all right. But like everybody who's been enduring this with me, you are worth the wait, sir.
Nah, we'll see. We'll see about that.
So how the heck are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh man, it's been such a long time.
It has been. I'm just turning up my volume here to hear you better.
Okay. Yeah.
There
all
we
right.
go.
Okay. So so I have I mean, I'm so excited to be in touch with you again. And this list of questions that I have is probably not going to be chronological, so you're going to have to try to keep up with me.
That's fine. Whatever you want.
Right. So, do I recall correctly? Did you and I test for Thai boxing the same night at the second Marina School?
That's what I remember. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That was gosh, what year was that? That was in the 80s, right?
I think that was 1991.
Oh, was it? Okay.
All yeah. Right. I think it was 1991, if I remember correctly. Okay. But now here's the other thing, right? I remember when I would fly out to do my 2-day trips in LA, and Sifu Dan and Simo Paulo would pick me up, and we'd go up to the IMB, and there you'd be.
Yes, that's right? Correct.
And then we'd leave and we'd go to Harbor College, and you'd be there.
Correct.
Right. And then we would have lunch. They would drop me off at the Marina School, and then at 5 o'clock you'd be back.
Correct.
Okay.
That's all I did was follow him around.
Right. What kind of how people like you and Chris Kent and Cass Magda that live like that? How did you guys support yourself back in that era?
Oh, it was really easy. You know, just money was just coming in from everywhere. It just like showed up on the ground. No, well, actually, so I lived for 5 years. I lived in a parking lot of a dog and cat hospital in a little tiny camper trailer. And when I say tiny, I could touch both walls. Yeah. So it was just a bed and a place to walk into it and lay down on the bed or sit on the bed, and that was basically it. They had a shower and a bathroom in the dog and cat hospital facility itself, but I took care of the dogs and cats at night, made sure everything was fine, and I didn't have to pay any rent. That was a good thing. The bad thing was it was just deplorable living conditions, and you know, drive-by shootings right across the street. Wake up in the morning, there's a bullet right next to the car and all that. But that allowed me to do some part-time jobs, very part-time, so that I had just enough money to eat and to pay for the academy, and then just go train constantly.
Right. Yeah.
So that was my monkhood, because yeah, that time I really it allowed me to get my mind in a better place, because I had finished college and I was very depressed. I mean, I was very depressed, and didn't know. I was supposed to go to medical school. I had no interest in going to medical school. I was very sick, physically sick also. Yeah. With digestive problems. And so I said, you know, I'm going to just take 1 year off. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do for 1 year. Right. And then I'll go to medical school. Well, it's been, what, 35 years. Yeah. So even back then, right, 30 plus years ago, you were always one of those that I considered, the adjective I used for your look was well practiced. Right. Well, I think that was the thing, because, you know, when it comes down to it, really, I just, you know, I practice more than at that time period and all. I practice more than anybody. Like you said, you know, I would go to IMB in the morning, then I'd go to Harbor College for the 2 classes there, then I'd be at the Inasano Academy in Marina del Rey at night, and any class Guru Dan taught, I was there, and I was training.
Right.
And even when I became an instructor, I would still participate in the basics class. I would never go, you know, I don't need those basics now. I would always participate in the basics class. So I was constantly honing the basics. And then when I'm outside of class, I was practicing. It was, you know, just, that's it. Like you, I mean, you, I must say, and I'm not just saying this, but anybody that knows Dwight, man, talk about well practiced and beautiful movement. And it just takes cultivation. You can't do that without putting in, like, you know, almost mental problem amount of hours.
Yeah, but I wish I was as deadly as you are.
Oh, I'm deadly. Yeah. If I get in my car and hit somebody with my car, oh, deadly. Deadly.
No, okay. So seriously, here's I'm going to give people a little bit of insight, right? I saw your absolute devotion to Dan Inosanto in 1989 when we went to New York. And you and I were part, do you remember? You and I were part of the protection detail.
I remember.
Right?
I remember very well. Neil Colliff's Academy, and it's like, oh, geez, there was supposed to be like 50 people. It turned out to be 180 people at the seminar. That was interesting.
Yeah, right. But here, and here's another thing, right? That I want to share with people so they have some insight. When you and I started talking about doing this program today, the first thing you said was, "Oh, it's gonna be on July 20th. That's the anniversary of Cedro Bruce's passing." And I'll be honest with you, I thought to myself, that's interesting, because here's Burton Richardson, Mr. Reality Training, Mr. Silat For The Street, Mr. Battlefield Kali, Mr. Jeet Kune Do For The Street. How come he has this sentimental stroke, you know, this sentimental aspect that the first thing that he says is, "Oh, you and I are going to be talking on the anniversary of Bruce Lee's passing." That, yeah. So blend those two for me.
Absolutely. I probably think at some point of Bruce Lee every single day of my life, because when I'm doing my teaching and doing my own training, I'm always referencing him, not in an idolatry way, like, oh, Bruce Lee, just because he was so successful and he really did it. You know what I tell people, you know, because as you're mentioning, my whole thing, my main emphasis is, hey, we should be able to actually do this stuff against someone who's not letting us do it.
Right.
That's as simple as that. And so what in my path, what happened is I started doing competitions, and I started realizing a lot of things that I was practicing a lot myself, I couldn't do in competition.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, just like, not even at all. And just to be clear on that, after a while, after it was after the second competition when I really realized, like, oh, it's not so much me, it's the stuff I'm trying to do, it's the techniques I'm trying to do. And then Guru Dan's voice, these little snippets start coming up in my brain, all these things that he had said that went whoop over my head. And then finally, now I have fighting experience. I'm like, oh, like, for example, one time he said in class, he said, yeah, you know, if I was just training you guys just to be fighters, this was at the IMB Academy, daytime class. He says, if I was only training you to be fighters, I'd have you guys on the bag with the sticks, and you'd be hitting the bag for, you know, like 8 rounds, you know, this and that. And honestly, then he pointed at me and he goes, but he'd be the only one here because there's something wrong with him. and that popped back in my mind, like, oh. And then I remember so vividly one time when he went with stick and dagger, and he goes, okay, the guy hits, and he goes, you know, disarm, takes the knife away, 1,000 shots, you know, takes the guy down, puts him into a lock. Everybody's just flabbergasted. And then he says, of course, I'd rather just step back and hit the hand. But anyway, it's like, oh, he really would rather just step
Yes.
back and hit the hand.
Yes.
And it just didn't. So he gave us everything. It's just I didn't have the point of reference to understand what was most important. Even though he would say, I'd rather step up here,
Right.
let's do this. So the point being that getting back to Sigong Bruce, think about him when he was doing he got his big chance. He's going to get to do the international.
Yeah.
He's going to demonstrate. This is where he's going to come out and everybody's going to see who this guy is. So this is his big chance. So what's he going to do? He's going to do, 2-finger push-ups. He's going to do the 1-inch punch. He's going to do some, the finger jab demonstration. But he also put the gear on and he sparred. Now, who does that?
Right.
Who thinks it's so important that he's actually going to put the gear on and go, hey, look, now watch us do this when it's not just a demonstration.
Yeah.
And so that whole philosophy of saying, hey, we want this to really work for real. Because my thought is that at some point, and it has happened, some of my students are actually going to get into a real situation. And I would feel if I didn't actually train them the very best that I could and actually have them experience Jeet Kune Do as well, not just learn techniques, but actually the experience of going against someone who's fighting back,
right.
Then I feel like I could fail them, that I need to at least give them a fighting chance. Yeah. And as it's happened, I've had 3 different people actually had been attacked with knives of my students over all these years, and they all came out fine because they had spent a lot of time dealing with someone who's coming at them, just really coming at them without just giving it to them. And so they were able to do something very simple and basic. But coming back to Sigong Bruce, he's the model.
Yeah.
He really is the model. Yeah. Besides Guru Dan. Guru Dan,
Well, we'll get to him. So a few things come out of that for me. One, you said that you went into competition to find out what worked. Right? Now that could sound to some people to be antithetical to Jeet Kune Do, because Jeet Kune Do is not about sport or competition.
Correct.
You see?
Yeah,
so clarify that for people who might be confused by the point that you're making.
Yes. Okay. For example, if we say, okay, JKD is for street self-defense. It has nothing to do with competition. Okay. Well, if you are practicing, say, Tan Sao Da into a Pak Sao, into a Jik Chung Choi and all that, you're basically blocking punch and returning punches. So why can't you just go, hey, let's take this up a notch and let's actually go in and the guy's going to actually try to hit me as hard as he can. Now, I'm not telling everybody that's what they're supposed to do all the time, because we're going to talk about that later, that sparring is not fighting. Sparring is where you try not to hurt each other. Nobody should get hurt. But to take it to the level of fighting, you go in there. I mean, what's the difference? You're like, oh, I couldn't use my finger jab. Well, yeah, when you're doing your Tan Sao Da and your Pak Sao, the Jik Chung Choi, there's no finger jab in there either. So it's like, why not be able to use that? And as a friend of mine once said, he said, if you can't hit somebody in the face with your entire fist, how do you think you're going to put your finger in their eye? Right?
Right.
So, let's start with the big old gloved hand and the entire target of the head. Let's start there. And if we can do that, okay, now let's try to take a smaller target and put it, with the smaller weapon.
Yeah. Okay. Then the other thing is, okay, you know what? Let me drop that for a second.
Yeah.
Ego.
Yes.
Here's what I remember about you. You actually had the guts to say, you know what, guys? I may have been headed in the wrong direction with all my fancy technique stuff. I'm paraphrasing what you said. But you had the courage to say that publicly. Right?
Right.
I remember when I heard you say that, I thought to myself of a paraphrase, something that Seagun Bruce said. Jeet Kune Do is about kicking the stuff out of your own ego, right?
Exactly.
And then the other thing was that, to relate back to the sparring, it said when you start the sparring, you discover what works and what doesn't. And so it leads to simplifying. So I want to talk to you about, so now we'll backtrack a little bit. Talk to me about reality when it comes to kicking and punching and sparring. When did that happen? When did that occur? Because I think I remember a story about you saying that Richard Bustillo said, okay, bring your boxing gloves next week. And
yeah, you remember that.
yeah, and a whole bunch of people disappeared.
Oh my gosh. So this was at the original Kali Academy. So this is 1980.
Okay.
And a class would start every once in a while. And so you had your name on the list, and then they'd call and say, okay, we have a new class starting. I got the call, went in, it's in the summertime, and there were 40 people in the class, in the brand new class. And so we're going along, and just, I have to just tell you a little bit of an aside on this thing is, like, for example, everybody, Silat Richard and Guru Dan would alternate teaching that class.
Right.
And so Silat Richard had us all go up, one of the very first classes, go up to the wall, put your hand on the wall, lean here, and hold your side kick out, you know, as high as you can. And I'm looking around, everybody has their side kick up around, you know, shoulder level, some up, you know, head level. And I'm down around the kneecap. That's as high as I can lift my leg. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have a physical problem. There's my body doesn't work like everybody else's. I had no idea. But it turned out everybody else was already a black belt, and I had no training. But so there was a lot of humbling happening in that class to begin with. Yeah. So then everything's going along just fine. And Silat Richard, as you said, okay, next week, and this is maybe about 2 months in, still 40 people in class. Next week, everybody, you got to bring your boxing gloves. Brought the boxing gloves. Everybody came in. Again, 40 people, and we started sparring. So, you know, somebody got a bloody nose. I remember he called time, and I put my hands down, and the guy hit me with a hook afterwards and really tweaked my jaw. And this and that. Anyway, the following class, there were 8 people in class. It went from 40 to 8, like that. But here's the thing. Yeah. You know, any school owner out there is going, oh, we're not doing any sparring. Forget that. We're not going from 40 people to 8 people. Yeah. But the problem was, it went from very beginner level to, okay, put the gloves on, and basically just going for it, right? And people are just getting wrecked. And you know, that was a very Silat Richard way of doing things, you know, back from, I actually boxed at the gym that he used to box in when he was growing up. And this is a rough gym. Yeah. And so the point beyond the sparring, it has to have progressive resistance, variable intensity, and you should do it safely so everybody can spar, but no one's getting hurt. And then you will have certain people that go, oh, I'd like to take it to the next level. So I have students, I have plenty of students that like to spar hard, safely, but they spar hard, but not everybody. So in the end, I get a lot of people that do that, but I also get a lot of people that will spar very, very lightly. But they are dealing with the resisting opponent all the time, which is that's the whole point of it. That's the whole thing Bruce Lee was talking about. It's like, you know, Bruce Lee said, students are going to want more and more techniques until you make them spar, right? Once they start sparring, they're like, oh, let me actually learn how to do the jab. I thought I knew how to do the jab or the straight lead. Turns out I don't, because it's different when someone's punching back at you. So that's really the basic thing. But yeah, back there in the day, And that was really a shock to go into class and suddenly there were only 8 people in the whole class, and move on from there.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. So you just told us a little bit about your development in Jun Fan and JKD. Tell us about reality, the birth of reality with your Filipino martial arts.
Yes. Okay. So that's where it really. Whoop! I lost you for a second.
Yeah, there might be some people listening in who haven't heard those stories.
Okay, so basically, I was doing, Filipino martial arts, and as you say, I practiced a lot, and so I became proficient, and I was teaching classes and under Guru Dan, and very, very, very happy. So I had a competitive background playing baseball and other sports, so I thought, hey,
right.
There's a competition. Let me go try the competition. And actually, just to be clear, I didn't do it to go, hey, let me see what works and what doesn't. I was just like, oh, I'm just going to go to the competition, win the championship, and this is going to be great. So I go out there, and I drive 8 hours to Northern California. I get there early in the morning, drove overnight, and I'm the very first match of the whole day. There are hundreds and hundreds of competitors there, and I'm the very first match of the whole day. And I go out there, and they say, go. And the guy starts moving around. It's a point, it's once they hit you, you stop. And the guy's moving around, and all of a sudden, I remember just having this sensation of, oh, this doesn't feel like what I'm used to. And the guy just wound up. I mean, just reared back and boom, threw in this angle 2 at me and hit me right in the head. I didn't even move. Like, all right, okay, point for the guy. Okay, so all right, let's go. Now we start moving. I start moving a little bit, and this time he does the same thing. I'm telling you, he just reared back. Here comes the angle 2, and this time he's like, and I hit him on the hand as it's coming in, and his stick hit me in the head. They gave him the point. So okay, geez. So now I'm a little more waking up, and so I start moving around. And we move around. I think he got me one more time. That was it. Match was over. So I drove 8 hours to have about a 2-minute match.
Right.
And see, that's where, again, Guru Dan says, I'd just rather move back and hit the hand. Well, I didn't even move back, right? Because I wasn't used to that kind of thing where someone actually coming at me. Okay, so I go back, and I decide, I just have to train more. And as you know, I was training more than anybody else. But my thought was, oh, I have to train more. And so I just kept doing the same things, but even more. That whole thing, if you're digging a hole in the wrong place, stop digging, right? You got to go do it someplace else. But I doubled down, and I did everything more than ever, went back to another tournament, and the same thing happened. And then I'm driving home and going, oh, and I realized all the matches I watched, all those fights, I didn't see anybody doing certain things. It wasn't until much later that I realized that a lot of it was due to the sword. A lot of the techniques we were doing were actually sword oriented, going block check and come through here. If you go block check and you hit to the ribs, hitting somebody hard in the ribs isn't going to hurt them, really. I mean, maybe the next day, but it's not going to stop them. But that's a sword technique, and the swords bind, so you can go block check and all. So anyway, I had this thing, and again, like I was saying, then all of a sudden it's Guru Dan speaking. I'm like, oh, I understand what he's saying now. It was totally on me. He was giving me everything. It was just totally on me that I didn't perceive these things. And then later on, one night, Mark Denny comes up to me, and I trained Mark Denny in Silat and some other things, and taught him privately. He comes up to me and goes, hey, I know you like to stick fight. There's a friend of mine who likes to stick fight. Do you want to spar with him tonight? I said, oh, sure. So after class was over, this guy comes in, big guy, Eric Noss. And he's real nice guy, real big. And so what we usually did was either we would spar with very light rattan sticks and have the gear on from head to toe, like that big jacket and the head gear, the whole thing. Or if we just had a helmet and a glove, then we would use a soft stick and we just go light with the soft stick. So we just he put on a headgear and a hand protection. That's it. And he comes up to me and goes, is it okay if I use this stick? And it's a big old stick this big. I mean, it's a huge, huge stick. And I said, oh, sure. Okay, no problem. And so I got one similar. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, we are going to go so light. Right. Because obviously, you know, we just have the headgear and hand protection. We're going to use rattan. It's a big, thick rattan. We're going to go so light. And so we're about to walk out. And Mark says to me, hit him because he's going to hit you. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's the point. We're going to be doing some sparring, right? Isn't that, you know, I'm thinking that's the point. I thought that was such an odd thing for him to say. So we go out, we start moving around, and he tries to rip my head off with a stick. Just this gigantic two-handed backhand, trying to just rip my head off. And fortunately, I was able to block it, but no follow-up whatsoever. It was just like, whoa, 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 like this. And then he comes down and he drops down in full power shot at my kneecap. And thankfully I moved my leg. By that time I'd done a lot of hand and leg sparring, so I moved my leg. And so I'm thinking, what's wrong with this guy? This guy's trying to break my kneecap. What is with this guy? And so I, you know, should have just stopped, but of course, you know, the ego, whatever, you're in there and you're doing it, so you just keep going. And then after he tried to hit my knee maybe 4 times, and I was able to evade it each time. And again, I'm thinking this guy's crazy. There's something wrong with this guy. The round ends. He takes off his mask. He's got this big grin on his face. He comes up, gives me a hug, and says, oh, I was trying to hit your knee. I couldn't hit your knee. And I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? This is a mental issue. But when I went home that night, again, the thought is like, oh, wow, I really didn't handle that well, because I blocked shots to the head, but I didn't have the wherewithal to go block and return because I was so overwhelmed with the power. And so then it's like, oh, well, I got to do this thing. And then over, you know, doing it very often, many, many nights, then we did this thing in this place, Ramblers Park. Anyway, it became termed Dog Brothers later, and they gave me the name Lucky Dog. But yeah, that was another really seminal moment of going, oh. And then as I went on in my training, then I met someone here in Hawaii, Egan Inoue, and he was one of the very early no-holds-barred fighters before it was called MMA. I started training with him. I trained him kickboxing, and he was a grappler, and I found out, oh my gosh, I'd already trained like a year and a half of grappling. I started training with him. It's like, oh, I don't know how I did a year and a half of jiu-jitsu plus all the other groundwork and all. I was like, oh, well, guess what? I didn't know how to stick fight. I did a kickboxing match, which I did okay. Didn't know how to grapple. And again, nothing on Guru Dan at all, because Guru Dan gave everything. It was all right there for the taking. But in my own, the type of practice I did personally, I wasn't working functionally. So that's when I'm like, you know what? That's it. For my path, I'm just going to work on the functional things. That's what I'm going to do. There's all and it turns out there's just so much in the functional world. And for all those out there that like trapping and have heard over the years that I don't like trapping and trapping doesn't work and blah, 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 all that sort of thing, I don't say that. I've never said that. I said trapping is difficult to do against someone who's just throwing punches at you, because it is. All you have to do, this is my thing, try it out for yourself, right? Just try it out for yourself. Bruce Lee said it's all about, JKD's personal experience. It's a personal art. It means each individual has to have their own experience. There's I don't know if you people out there have heard this, but there's this thing, absorb what is useful, right? I think you may have heard of that one, right? Well, some people know that it actually goes absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is specifically your own. But actually, that's 2, 3, 4. number one is research your own experience. That means doing the sparring, getting in there, actually getting fighting experience. So research your own experience. Then once you've researched your experience, you have experience, then you can absorb what is useful because you know what's useful and what's not. You can reject what is useless for you or for right now, and then you can add what is specifically your own.
You know, those quotes are real popular. Everybody knows them. I sometimes wish that these were as popular. Learn the technique, practice the technique, functionalize the technique, right? You know, because those guys we were given by Sifu Dan in the early days, but you never hear about that stuff anymore. And it's just as valid.
True.
You know, it's just as relevant to the popular stuff. Anyhow, but I gotta do some not show and tell, show and ask. So I'm gonna show stuff, and you have to tell me what was going through your mind at the point.
Okay, you know, I'm having a problem because your video stopped working.
Okay.
I have a freeze frame of you right now. But
okay, it's fine because on my end everything's okay, so it'll work out.
Great.
Beautiful. All right, so you ready? I don't know if you can see these. That's I can't. Okay, it's the first video series, the 3-part Jeet Kune Do concepts.
Oh, come on. You have that? Oh, gosh. This is the Dwight Woods Museum here.
So.
Oh, my gosh.
Because here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. You have such an extensive body of work, right? That I think it would be great for people to understand if we backtrack 20 plus years and find out how you were thinking at that time, why you were thinking what you were thinking. So talk to us a little bit about video series number 1. To the best of my knowledge, that was your first series, Jeet Kune Do concept.
Yeah, I did do one single video in Japan with for Yori Nakamura before that, but that was the one you have was the first actual really series. So my mindset at that time was, okay, they want me to do a 3 video series, and I have about 400 videos worth of stuff. How am I going to do this in 3 videos? So I decided I was going to show a little bit of Filipino martial arts, and then also just for the whole JKD concept. So the weaponry and the movement from the weaponry, and then on and on to the kickboxing, to trapping, to everything. And so my mindset was, okay, let me do as much as I can. So I had a list and the whole thing. I remember vividly leaving that day after we shot all 3 videos, getting in the car and thinking, oh, man, I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, and I didn't do that, and didn't do that. I was very disappointed. Yeah. And then when the videos came out, I remember thinking, oh, actually, I did quite a bit, didn't I? Right. So, but yeah, my mindset at that time was just to share a wide range, which is one of the JKD concepts, is to be a complete fighter. Don't just only be a trapper. Don't just be a kickboxer. Don't just be a grappler. And don't just be a weaponry person. Make sure you can just be able to do it all, because you don't know what's actually going to come up in a real situation. So that was the basic idea there.
Okay. So now, was there a different mindset when this series came out?
Okay, which one is that?
This is Defining Jeet Kune Do. So I think this was the 6-part series.
Yes. So the first series apparently did quite well. The Unique Publications was very happy, so they said, can you do another one? I said, okay, this is it. I'm going to go now and go step by step by step through each increment of what, again, a complete fighter should be doing. So I went through every little sort of thing, and the whole deal went in a lot of detail. And that was basically the idea there. But at that point, I still didn't have the sparring aspect as the base, which
Yes.
I totally had missed at that time.
Right.
Basic, it's like anything else, right? You want to play basketball, you go learn how to play basketball a little bit, then guess what? You got to play a game, or you got to scrimmage. So you actually know what it's like when someone's trying to take the ball away from you. But yeah, so on that second series, it was all about, hey, let's just go every increment of the art, from not just trapping, but hey, let's look at trapping right to right, trapping right to left. Let's look at when someone's taller, and just it was a very complete series.
Yeah. Okay. Then so I did. This is. Can you see this one?
I'm sorry. I've got a freeze frame right now.
Okay. So this is Straight Blast Gym, but this I couldn't find a picture of Series 1, but this is the Straight Blast Gym, Burton Richardson Series 1 and 2. So what's the mindset now?
Now, see, that is where a lot of things changed. And oh man, did I take some flack for that one? Because as you said, at that point, I had now trained with Egan and his brother Ensign, who was a MMA champion, Pride champion. These guys are really, really, really good athletes and fighters. And so that's when I realized like I couldn't do my Silat all of a sudden. And I did Silat in Dog Brothers stick fighting. I did sweeps. I did head tilts. I mean, I was applying it. I did Silat in stick fighting tournaments. So I was applying my Silat. Then all of a sudden I get to these guys and I can't apply any of my Silat. I'm trying it. I can't do anything. And so that's where I I got to put this aside. If it doesn't work at all against these guys, I got to put this stuff aside. And basically, like, I got to do what they're doing, because
are you saying that you had to start over?
I had to start over. I just basically, there's this philosophy thing, Descartes, tabula rasa, clear the table. Like, wow, I'm gonna start all over. And oh man, especially the grappling, Dwight. I think I was the worst grappler on the planet. The least aptitude for grappling. I mean, after grappling for about 3 years and I starting to get it a little bit, I was at the Machados one day, and one of the Machados walks in and goes, "Oh, you're starting to move." He goes, "Yeah, when you started, you were like this." Thank you very much. But that is correct. That is correct. Yeah, but again, it's all about the truth. Honesty is the first thing. Honesty. You have to be honest with yourself. If you go in and you go against somebody who's resisting and you can't do anything, you can either pretend it didn't happen and then you don't get better.
Right.
Or you can go, wow, I've got to get better. I've got to learn this. So that's what I did. I went in and I just started training that. So by the time that first Straight Blast Gym series came out, I already had the experience, and I had been training against resistance for quite a while. All right, so I go in, and I just basically make the point, hey, not everything works. There are these things that are very, very, very difficult to pull off against someone who's actually fighting you, and I just explained that whole thing. I talked about Guru Dan, there's an interview part, and I said, just like I talked about earlier, Guru Dan gives you everything you could possibly want, and it's up to you to go on your path, which direction. And people took that, and they took the whole thing, because I think a lot of people were, truthfully, just intimidated by this. How dare, what? This doesn't work. That's what I teach, whatever. And so the dialogue became, or, the politics, right? You know how the politics is. So the politics was, there are certain people that went to Guru Dan and said, hey, Burton Richardson is out there bad-mouthing you. He says the stuff you do doesn't work, that you didn't teach him right, and all that, just making up lies, right? And that was the worst part of the whole thing. It's one thing for me to go, hey, I've got a reputation, but guess what? All this stuff, I can't actually do it myself against a decent athlete, a decent combat athlete. And, you know, just going, okay, I'm going to change my way. I'm going to go a different direction, start again, just start from beginning and work my way back up. That was one thing. But yeah, when people did all that stuff, and of course, and I wasn't next to him, next to Guru Dan, to be able to go over to him and go, oh no, that's not true at all.
Right.
And so, yeah, I heard that he was very upset. Of course he was upset because I was so loyal to him. And if, you know, if somebody that loyal, and he did so much, the reason I was loyal, he did so much to me, for me.
Right.
So much. He's so generous. And then, yeah, to have all these people saying it, that was a very tough thing. But it taught me a lot about, yeah, that whole human nature thing. And they want to be the top guy or whatever it is. And to do that, let's drag down anybody else that's up there.
Yeah.
But thankfully, over time, when I was finally able to get together with Guru Dan, then he finally is like, oh, right. It's just, I'm just me. I'm just the same person as ever who loves him and respects him and is so thankful for him. But that was the tough thing about that. But basically the idea there was like, hey, you gotta do some training with resistance.
Right.
It's one thing to do it against the guy holding, you know, and how many times have we read the thing, Bruce Lee, again, back to Bruce Lee. You know, most martial arts, you know, they're dissecting a statue. Guy stands there with his hand out and you go, ta, 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 ta. And his whole thing is, hey, what happens with the guys hitting back? Boards don't hit back, right? And but yet a lot of people in the JKD world went that direction over time and stopped the sparring. And just as another aside, all the sparring progressions I use, like say in Battlefield Collie, you know, we do hand sparring. We really focus on hand sparring only, just hitting the hand. Then hand and head is the only targets. Then hand and leg are the only targets. Then full sparring. Then we add the clinch. Then we add the ground. And little by little, I learned all that from Guru Dan, just as you did. You know, all the, you know, right against left, point up against point down. All that's all from, all the sparring stuff is right from Guru Dan.
Yeah.
But so that Straight Blast Gym series, yeah, it caused quite the controversy, and there were a lot of people really mad at me, and yeah, that was a very interesting time.
Yeah.
But
all right.
But
so,
in the end, I got to tell the truth. So.
Right. Okay. Tell the truth about this. Can your knees and hips still handle MPOC and DEPOC?
Thankfully, actually, you know, right now, I just had a little knee issue. So maybe today, no, but I can do it. I sit in Sempoc all the time. But I can, like when I did my Silat For The Street series for Black Belt Magazine a couple years ago, you know, I'm standing up. I went back down to Dempoc. I stood up and kicked and came back down. I did a bunch of those, and I start standing and twist all the way down and twist all the way up, so yes, I can still do it. Okay. Which is a function of just doing it consistently, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And not allowing myself to weigh 400 pounds like I would have if I kept eating the way I was when we were hanging out.
Exactly. I remember that. So tell us a little bit about a typical day for you, because I know that the health thing is extremely important, right? And it's what, 10 a.m. where you are?
Yes, it's about 10 a.m.
Okay, yeah. So give us an idea of what a typical. Do you have typical days, or is every day different? Or
I have a lot of typical days. Yes. So our typical day here, get up, and often before we even have breakfast, first thing I do when I get up and I got this through Guru Dan from John Lacoste, is I drink a big cup of water, like, I don't know, 16 ounces of water. That's the first thing I do. I get up and I drink the water. Then most mornings, then my wife Sarah and we go out and we train. So we put up the mats, and guess what we do? We start standing and we do open hands. Sometimes we put the helmets on and go with the gloves and closed fists, but we do kickboxing sparring, then we do clinch sparring. And anytime we're doing this, at any time I might pull out a training pistol or a training knife. So it's just integrated in there. So anytime we're sparring, we're always looking for that. It's actually not just a thought that, oh, look for the weapon, but actually it's in the training. So you're programmed to do it. And then we go to the ground, and then we work the ground. And the ground is with striking and eye gouges and groin hits and all. And basically we do, it usually ends up about 30 minutes, and then we do a little physical therapy afterwards, like certain, you know, wall sits and certain things to make sure our body's all straight. And that we do four mornings a week.
Okay.
Then we have breakfast, and then after that, usually I spend time then researching. So I'll go watch videos, I'll read a book, whatever it is, I'm researching martial arts and martial arts technique, martial arts philosophy. I'll watch fights and see what people are doing that's effective in actual fights and this and that. And then we spend a lot of time together as a family. My daughter's homeschooled. And I should have mentioned, my daughter comes out and she trains also with us. She's 8 years old.
Yeah.
And then
I was going to bring that up.
Yes. And then we go about our day. Then I go Tuesday and Thursday nights. I teach my classes in Honolulu. And but we have ample time. Basically, what I did is we said, you know what? We are going to prioritize free time so that we have free time in our life to enjoy our life and do the things we want to do. That's what we're going to prioritize, which is why I do not have a full-time school. If I had a full-time school, I would have to be there all the time. And you know how it is. If sometimes you get to that point where you're teaching, 30 classes a week, and it starts to become a chore to go teach. So I always want to have it so it's fresh. So I chose, instead of, I could have made more money, but our quality of life is very, very high. So we prioritize family time. Then I have people come over and train with me. My students will come and train, and I'll teach privates. People come over to take privates from me. And so that's basically what it is. We go enjoy this island. We enjoy the island life. It's pretty awesome. Got to come over and check it out.
It sounds pretty awesome to me. Yeah. Now, who names gives the titles for the stuff that you put out, like the MMA for LEOs, like Battlefield Collie, Silat For The Streets? Is that your doing, and are you your own webmaster?
Yes. So Sarah is our webmaster, but we also have somebody that helps us with some of the very technical things of putting up the videos and such. But so Battlefield Collie, for example, I was in Reunion Island. That's where Sarah is from. It's if this is Africa, right, you go down to South Africa, and there's Madagascar is right here. You keep going, and there's a little island called Reunion Island out there, and that's where I met Sarah. I was teaching a seminar, and after going back a couple times, we ended up getting married, and she moved to LA, then we moved here. So I was in Reunion one time, and I was explaining to a guy there who had done a lot of training. He trained with Sifu Richard Bustillo, and so he's a fairly prominent martial arts instructor in Reunion Island. And I'm explaining the Battlefield Collie. He's taking a private from me. And so we did a little bit of sparring, and he was surprised and this and that. And he just looks at me, he goes, "Oh, this is Battlefield Collie." I'm like, "Oh, what a nice term." Like, that's what it is. It's for actually going out and fighting with it, not just the artistic portion of it. Right. And so that's where I got that term. The whole For The Street thing is, I just wanted to emphasize that, For The Street, as far as actually making sure it works to defend yourself in a real situation. So MMA For The Street. Hey, you can take a great MMA guy and you kick him in the groin, and guess what? He's not going to have a response because he never practices blocking a groin kick. So we add the groin kick. You get into the clinch and you hit. And I tell you, of all my students that I've ever had, Sarah, my wife, is the best at getting to the eyes and hitting to the groin. Like, any position, we'll be grappling, and I'll actually have technically a good grappling position. I pass the guard, and I'm
Right.
up, you know, at the side, and all of a sudden, boom, there's like,
Yeah.
you know, kung fu looking
Oh,
hand
man.
coming up, like, vroom, and like, you know, always. Oh my gosh, I do not grapple or spar with her without putting my cup on. Let's just
Right.
put it that way. But so
when I first met her, I don't think she was training.
she was training a little bit when you first met her. That's right. She
Oh.
was just kind of dabbling in a little bit. Would do some focus mitts and this and that, and then over time, she started to actually get into it, and then she's really,
Right.
really got into it. And
Now,
it's
that
interesting.
might be something that the two of you could turn into a training program for a lot of us out there who have significant others, and we want to bring them up to the level of a Sarah Richardson.
Yes, I think we're going to do some training specific things where Sarah is it'll be Sarah and I, and we'll talk about that whole training thing, because over the years, what we've figured out is how to train in a very short period of time, but consistently, and get huge results. I mean,
Yeah.
Like for example, Sarah with her grappling, we end up grappling about 10 minutes at a time, 4 days a week. Okay, so 40 minutes a week of grappling. You would say, gosh, that's not even a full class. So she's doing less than one class a week, but it's very specific and focused. There's no wasted time. And for example, recently there was a seminar here, and there were a lot of women teaching, black belt jiu-jitsu women, and some, you know, the first black belt American female black belt in jiu-jitsu, and a bunch of the very early black belts. So these women are very good, and they do jiu-jitsu for a living. That's what they do. Every day they teach jiu-jitsu, they do jiu-jitsu. And at one point, Sarah got to roll with two of them, and she dominated them. I'm just looking, going, man, she passed the guard, gets to the back, like no problem. And it was really impressive. But the point being, 40 minutes a week, 10 minutes a shot, 4 days a week. And then every once in a while, you know, she'll get together we'll have other people come, and she'll do a little more with them. But the whole point is, you can do it in a very short period of time, whatever the art, as long as you're very focused and specific and know exactly how to break it down so you hit everything and don't end up, you know, like, for example, I'll just tell everybody, like say grappling, you can get to the point where your grappling is so good that it's very difficult for anybody to get to the mount position on you. Yeah, I mean, you can just, if you just roll, you can go years and nobody gets the mount position on you. But the day somebody does get to the mount position, you're going to realize, oh gosh, I am so ill practiced here that I'm not sure what to do. And you see it in MMA every once in a while. A very good jiu-jitsu guy is in MMA. He gets hit. Somehow the guy mounts him, and he just doesn't know what to do because he hasn't been mounted in forever. So that's why we, again, going back to Guru Dan's, you know, like the Kali, the hand sparring only, hand and head target, hand and leg, do that same thing where we isolate each position all the time. And that way you're sharp all the time, and it just brings everything up. So.
Yeah. Okay. So nowadays there are all these different self-defense, all these martial art, you know, street defense systems. There's the core combatives, there's the Shiv Works Collective, Crazy Monkey, the Kisi fighting method. Do you make anything of all these methods that are out there now?
Yes. So I research. So I go in there and I actually make sure I look at these, because they may have something we've never come across, and we can make ourselves better. For example, there's a system you may have heard of. I heard of it for quite a while. I never got to experience the Piper knife fighting system from South Africa, from Cape Town, specifically Cape Town. And I finally got to have some one-on-one time with Lloyd de Jong, who's one of the very top guys in this system. Oh, I tell you, Dwight, it is fantastic. It is fantastic. But when we go to a lot of the other systems, it's a very simple thing is people come up with new techniques, come up with a different look. So it looks different, but
Yeah.
it's often not pressure tested. The whole thing, if you want it to actually work, you have to pressure test it. And there are lots of different methods that can work.
Yeah.
But you have to pressure test it to make sure it does work. And this is my little thing. It's like, knife defense, empty hand against a knife. There are so many empty hand against a knife videos and all these things out there. My question is, why don't you just try it for 20 seconds? Put on a helmet, get a soft knife, and tell your partner, hey, cut me as many times as you can. Do not let me defend. Do not let me disarm you. Just do your best. Don't let me. If you do it for 20 seconds, you'll realize, like these people that they go and they show these things. Oh, the guy does this. I just, I stick my finger in his armpit and he can't reach me. And we take that to class and we go, here, let me put my finger in your armpit. Try to reach me. Bonk. It goes right in. It's 10 seconds. It took 10 seconds to test it. And it's like, just test the thing. So there's just such a lack of science in the martial arts world where it's like, oh, I come up with a theory. I come up with all these cool things, a theory. Hey, let me just teach it before I ever test it. No, can't be doing that. So that basically, to my chagrin, because I wish people would just test it, I see so many things out there that just simply are untested, and they teach it as though it is the thing, but you got to test it.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I want to start wrapping this up because I don't want to take up all of your morning. So let me tell you a little story about class last night and get your take on it. Right. So the topic of books about Bruce Lee, that topic comes up. And I say, well, the John Little library is indispensable. Okay?
Yes.
One of my new students says, who's John Little? I said, John Little picked up the mantle of Gilbert Johnson.
Oh, good analogy. Very good analogy.
Okay. So then we go around the room and the question is, does anybody know what I'm talking about? And I had one student who he was on top of it. My question for you is, do you think that in today's Jeet Kune Do atmosphere, it's important or necessary for students to have that kind of in-depth knowledge and understanding of their history and where we came from?
I think it's absolutely essential because, like we kind of mentioned, I think about something of Bruce Lee every single day, and not again as like worship or anything. It's just he just somehow had this laser focus on functional. And if you don't read the philosophy, you're gonna lose out. And that's what amazes me, when you see people that say, okay, Jeet Kune Do is just this, it's nothing else, it's only this, we do not grapple and this and that. And it's like, well, here are 4 pictures of Bruce Lee doing grappling. Oh, but that was movies, that didn't count. No, this other one, this is not the movie, this is him actually training. And no, we don't do that.
Right.
It's like, did you guys read the book? How about this? Let's see, Bruce Lee, of all the things, being a philosopher, of all the things he could have possibly used as the symbol for JKD, he chose using no way as way, having no limitation as limitation. What does having no limitation as limitation mean? And so we need to have people go and read the writings of Bruce Lee and the interviews and all this. And John Little has just done a tremendous job cataloging all these things. We have the resource. It's like they say, a person who does not read is no better off than someone who cannot read. I mean, the resources are there. Go use those resources and learn. I mean, and the great thing too is, as you know, we read the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Okay, well, say you read a few passages from the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. 2 years later, you read the same 2 passages, and they have a different meaning because you've grown. And that's why we need to go back all the time and go back and look at these things. But yeah. John Little did a tremendous job bringing things out that otherwise we wouldn't know.
Yeah. But do you think that even with that wealth of information out there, with people like you keeping the art alive and going, do you think, though, sometimes I think that its importance is fading somewhat, that it's been, the relevance of Jeet Kune Do has been supplanted maybe a little bit by the BJJ and the MMA and what have you, even though those things owe a lot to Jeet Kune Do. Do you understand? You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Because to me, what happened is Jeet Kune Do, that was the art you look to and go, oh, this really works. This really, really works. And then as people stop doing the sparring, did I say sparring? They stopped doing the sparring portion. What happened? Then you get an MMA guy who knows how to spar, and he plays around with the JKD guy and is like, oh, come on.
Right.
You don't know how to fight. Because basically that's what's happened to me, is that a lot of people in JKD forgot how to fight. And can I just say, for those that don't know Dwight very well, Dwight, man, what an awesome martial artist Dwight is. I mean, all the way around, he is a true, in my opinion, a true Jeet Kune Do practitioner, because he does so many things so well and functionally. And I mean, see, the problem is not so many people in JKD have done what Sifu Dwight has done, which is actually put that sparring time in and do, you know, all the research and such. So it has the whole picture, right? Because over time, if you do enough sparring, like actually before Sifu Richard Basillo passed away, he was out here in Hawaii, and I mentioned to him, I said, hey, Sifu Richard, you know, I was at Palolo Boxing Gym, you know, I boxed there, and he knew, and I said, you know, I actually was able, in the ring, against a guy going full out, was able to do double Pak Sao a couple times, and I even got a Pak Sao Lop Sao.
Yeah.
And Sifu Richard looks at me and goes, well, yeah, because you know how to fight. And it's like...
Right.
That's simple. If you understand the structure, you spend enough time in there, now you can do all your trapping, because you know when to do it against the guy who's really trying to hit you hard. So, but I kind of got off on a tangent a little bit there, but I just want to say that the Jeet Kune Do were, because MMA is real, and all you have to do, you know, somebody thinks, oh, it's not for real, go spar with them. They will be happy to spar with you. And again, if people say, well, I can't kick him in the groin, I can't poke him in the eye. Like most of your sparring, do you do that when you're sparring anyway? No. Almost everybody, you know, I watch people doing JKD sparring, which is great. I'm glad. Or they're doing techniques. Almost everybody kicks to the outside of the leg. They're doing a tie kick to the thigh. And they're not even kicking to the groin in the first place. So my point being, go ahead and go in and do the sparring. Go on the ground. You think your ground fighting is sufficient? Go on the ground with a good jiu-jitsu guy. Happy to do it with you. They're not going to hurt you. And go, you know, go find out for yourself and see where you can improve. But that's why I think JKD went down, because so many people were reticent to actually try it out. And now it's gotten to a point where it's like a kind of a museum art. Like, oh, Bruce Lee did this and this and this and this and this. Right? Well, at the end of his life, he said, you know, he said Chi Sao's out, right? But still everybody does Chi Sao, right? Which I totally, no problem people doing Chi Sao, as long as you actually understand why, because of the sparring and going, oh, this, it's very difficult to apply. So, That was my rant. Thank you very much.
That's fine. And thank you for the kind words. That was quite honorable of you.
No,
okay.
That's just the truth. I mean, I would love to be able to have Seafood Dwight as a training partner. We're just on the other sides of the world, but really, I mean, oh gosh, Dwight Woods, real deal, amazing, all the way around from technical to functional. I really appreciate that.
Well, on this day, where the us two JKD guys get together on the anniversary of Bruce Lee's passing, I have to announce something.
Yes.
On Sunday evening and Monday evening, I'm gonna do this Facebook Live thing again, and invite people to do exactly what you and I just did. Not for this. I'm not gonna take up this much of their time, but I'm gonna start it with you. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to give the short story of how you came to meet, train under, and eventually be certified by Dan Inosanto. And then I need to know what is the greatest impact that he's had on you.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you right now?
Okay, yeah. So let's do this. So first thing, the short story of how you came to meet, train under, and eventually be certified as an instructor.
Yes. My first girlfriend was training at the academy. So I grew up in Carson, California, and the academy was a little over a mile from where I grew up, the house I grew up in. Mm-hmm. And so basically she showed up to my house one day because I was too shy to ask anybody out, you know, and I was in high school, 17 years old. She shows up to the house and asks me to go to the movies, and we went and we watched Enter the Dragon. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Pretty cool. Right. Then she tells me she's training this and that, and I go over because I'd always been interested in martial arts, like very interested in martial arts, because I had some things happen to me when I was younger, some horrific things. And so she takes me over, and I see this place, and they're in sweatpants and shirts. They're not wearing karate gis, and they're moving around, and they start sparring. I see a guy get a bloody nose. They're kicking the shield. Then they pulled out the weaponry, and I was just like, that's it. Yeah. I was hooked. And so because of that, that's where I went, and I signed up so that I could start training. And then this summer, I was able to start training. So that's how I started my training. And I just was there all the time, like you said. And one day Guru Dan came up to me and says, "Are you going to keep training?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Okay, I want to make you an apprentice instructor." And then he went, okay, class, let's start. And I'm there dumbfounded, you know. What? Just shocked. Okay. And then the impact that Guru Dan has had on my life, I don't know how to, it's because really my entire life, the quality of my life, what I do every day, it's all because of Guru Dan. Yeah. Guru Dan, so incredibly generous with me, teaching like he is with everybody, but teaching me, going out of his way to try to help me actually be able to teach martial arts. You know, there was a seminar in England one year, and Paula comes up and says, "Oh, you know, we're doing the seminar. There's going to be a lot of people. Can you make it? Can you come and, you know, be an assistant?" I'm like, great. You know, so, you know, the host is paying for the ticket and the whole thing, and great. So we go over there, do the whole seminar. He demonstrates with me a lot and this and that. Well, years later, I find out that he paid for my airplane ticket just because he wanted people in England to see me so I could start getting known a little bit as a teacher. He did that for me, right? Yeah. I mean, typical. That's just typically Guru Dan Inosanto. And then just the way to be a good person. You know, you don't have to go out there and badmouth people. You are generous. This is all from Guru Dan. He's just the role model. He is the role model. So every day I'm very thankful for him.
Okay. Well, look, it's been a huge pleasure to do this. You know, spend some time with you. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'll do it for a couple hours on Sunday evening, and then a couple hours on Monday evening. It's the Facebook Live Inosanto birthday card.
Ah, great.
Right?
Awesome.
So I'll
Awesome.
go live and, you know, just like I brought you on camera, I'll talk to everybody for a couple of minutes on their origin story within Asano, greatest impact he's had on their lives, and then their favorite Asano anecdote, which you quite graciously provided.
Okay, awesome. It's my,
Okay.
yeah, it's
So
just
listen,
amazing.
we got to do this again because I only went through like half of my questions for you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime, Dwight, anytime, just let me know. And if I could just finish with, hey, everybody, experience the art for yourself. Actually try it with resistance. See what you can do and what you can't do, and then work at it. And so eventually you can do it. But remember that sparring should be done safely. Nobody should get hurt. Fighting is when people are trying to hurt each other. Sparring, not trying to hurt each other. And you're going to have so much fun. And it's so gratifying as you get better and better, and your students do as well.
Yeah. All right. And everybody knows to find you at jkdunlimited.com.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dwight.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Sure. All right. Okay, guys, that's it. Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode number 11 with Burton Richardson. Check in with us next week, this same time. We'll be talking to Mark Stewart.
Awesome. Mark's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Take care, Bert.
Okay. Thanks. Aloha.